but one guy did help me in the one pocket. He definitely speeded up the learning process. And his name was Hubert Cokes. His nickname was Daddy Warbucks. And he says a lot of people don't know it. He'd been gambling with Fats for years, and Fats had never even beat him. And he even spotted him a lot of times 10-8. And Hubert played pretty good. And anyway, he says, let's go over. He says, you're hitting them pretty good. He said, let's go over and take that Fats off. He said, a lot of people don't know it, but he gets his nose on it.
He's good action.
And but he's a good matchmaker, so it's hard to get a game. But I was young, and Hubert calls him up, and it kind of, those old timers kind of conned each other a little bit. And he said, you know, I got this young kid that thinks he can really play. And I said, I told him he was crazy. He wants to play you, the great Minnesota Fats. And he said, I told him he ended up losing his money probably. And he said, but he's determined to come over and play. He said, well, bring him on over there. I'll take care of him. And so we get over there, and we're in Fat's house. Oh, I'll never forget this. And he's showing us all the pictures on this pool table. It's in his house there, and all the pictures with the stars and everything. And Hubert finally, after about 15, 20 minutes, he says, Fats, he said, this kid didn't really come over to look at your scrapbook. Said he wants to try to bust you. And so anyway, Fats says, don't worry, Hubert. He says, I'm going to take you guys out, feed you a nice steak dinner, and then he says, I'll have plenty of time to bust you. But what was funny about that Fats was when we got to playing, I mean, I think we started off like a 300 a game or something, and this was like 70 or something like that. And he just stands like up like this when he's shooting it. I mean, it's almost like he's just
Not even
practicing or something. And I'm having a hard time realizing he's really trying to win and stuff. But I know he is because we're playing too high. And
Game 5. He's got his tough shot. It is a tough shot.
He likes these, doesn't he?
The bank.
Well, not this one. He doesn't like this one.
Oh, he's coming off the rail. Look
Oh,
at this.
hit
What
it
a
perfect.
shot.
Hit it perfect.
What a great shot by Minnesota. Is he a gamer?
so I just run over him like a freight train because Hubert got me a ball, and that was the highest.
playing banks or
One pocket.
One pocket. Okay.
One pocket, but then he wasn't one of them guys that's going to lose 40 barrels. He may lose a lot of money, but he's going to keep jacking the price up where he's always going to be within reach. You know what I mean? And every time we'd get up playing 800 a game or something. And this is when you could buy a new Cadillac for $6,000 or something.
Right.
And a lot of people think Hubert always staked me, but he always made me put up my end of the money, half of it. And I asked him one time, because he staked guys like Buddy and stuff, I said, how come you don't stake me? He said, you know, he says, that shows weakness of character. He said, and the first time I went to Johnson City with Hubert, what an experience that was. I played at the Stardust in 1971. Anyway, first guy I played is Ronnie Allen. Anyway, we played straight for, I beat him 100-12. Anyways, Hubert, he really knew how to stick the needle in, and he said, Ronnie, I won my bet after the match. And Ronnie said, how'd you bet? And he says, I bet you wouldn't get to 20. Oh my God, Ronnie went off the airways.
Well, Nick, let me ask you, so, because you know, it's been a big rumor, and I've always wondered, and I know Fat, like you say, I see him on TV, and he's doing, you know, and it's like, there's no way that guy was that good a player. Like in your prime playing one pocket, do you think you could have given him, like, in his prime, 10-6 or 9-8?
No.
I mean, he could play, but like
He beat Ronnie Allen, Ed Kelly, and Richie Flemings. He beat them they beat that Cleo, that bookmaker
From
in Mobile,
Mobile,
out of
yeah.
about 100 G's, Richie did.
Yeah.
And then they were all traveling together. And all they give Fats was 9-8. He got all that money.
what?
Yeah.
Must have been the
He
worst
could
one.
catch a gear that he could catch a gear in them banks. I'm telling you, it was the most unbelievable thing. You'd have him in maybe way behind. He'd make a 2-railer and make one of these other 2-railers, and then make a 3-railer. He caught a gear on me several times.
So he could play, I mean, he could play.
Oh, yes.
Not like your speed, but maybe you could have gave him like 9.7 if the table played good. Cause Mobile is
I
a
don't
wet,
know if I
janky
could
table.
ever give him 9.7.
Oh,
He'd have
I
to be
had
a
him
little
underrated.
older.
That's a better player than I thought he was then. Cause I watched him
I
on TV.
think I could give him 9.8 or maybe 8.7. I don't know, 10.8 I think stretching.
That's a good player.
Because Richie and Ronnie were playing awful good in those
Yeah.
days, and they couldn't get their 9.8.
Okay.
Which
Nick told me he had him trapped up a couple times real bad, and
Oh,
Minnesota
he
Fats reined in
was
a
a-
couple of nowhere shots. And
I
just-
thought a couple times I was really gonna unwind him for big money. I mean, the bet was way up, and all of a sudden, he caught a gear in them banks and
Just started whizzing.
and I mean, here's a guy that's shooting like this.
Yeah.
You can't even think, how can he be aiming, but, he's not as helpless as everybody
Right,
thinks he
okay,
was.
okay.
They kind of,
That makes sense. So like 8.7 or 9, 10, 8 under top players, but the equipment back
I
then
don't
was
think
so
they
messed.
win, they might win 10-8
I
maybe.
gotcha.
But Nick, part of that's his gimmick too, though, wasn't it? I mean, because I grew up. He came in my grandmother's restaurant every morning. I mean, I grew up seeing this guy. But the stories, the boisterous, the talking that you've seen on TV with him and Moscone and UJ and all that, because that's really most of the video that today we have of him is way after his prime. He's on TV, playing the greatest players of his era. That's nothing for him. That
So
wasn't
he
his.
must have played like 9-ball when he was 40 years old, like a 690 Fargo speed. Like he couldn't have been a donkey.
I
Like,
don't
he looked
know.
on
I don't
TV like
think,
a total donkey.
Because
I
he
don't
used to
think
hang out
he'd be
with
very high in the 9-ball, that's a
That's a
different
different,
story.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't think.
You gotta think it was 1944.
Well, believe me, if you play,
came to Southern
if you
Hall.
can't give a guy 9.7 in your prime, and I understand wet, janky tables down in Mobile, it's hard to gauge. But like if Fats was in his prime from a time machine today on this diamond, and you were in your prime 1990, and he could hang with you 9.7, then that dude could freaking play. Because I've seen you give champions 9.7.
I might be able to do something on a table like
That
this.
plays
We were
good.
playing on a Gandy with pockets as big
Right.
as, pretty big.
But he was way better than I gauged him.
He's not helpless,
Yeah, I had
like
him
people
like-
sometimes act like.
Like he was a total fake who couldn't beat nobody, and I'm thinking, how did this guy make all this money if he never beat nobody?
The only time I ever saw him, he was what you're talking about, so I did too. But then when he started saying, "Mark, I'm telling you, he reined in some banks from nowhere, and it was."
Well, he must have moved good, he must have
Oh,
been
yeah.
at 8
Oh,
now
he
something.
understood the game
Okay.
And
very
then,
well.
then he would out talk. If you talk with him, he'll kill you.
Oh, he's gonna give you.
Because that's his whole game. He's all about that. If you'll play, and then like Nick says, he'll keep the pressure on you. He's not gonna let you grind him out for 200 a game.
Well,
You're
you know
gonna
how
end
good
up
you
having
have to
to
play
bet.
one pocket to beat Ronnie Allen 40 years
Yeah.
ago, like,
Yeah.
with 9-8, like, I would be scared to play one.
Well, that's
pocket.
still,
This
those
guy
shows you're
sure
talking
runs
about,
like
John,
the
are
best
like from
one-pocket
the,
player that ever lived.
from the 70s.
Right.
But in like the
He's
40s,
certainly in contention, I tell you that.
That's interesting
He
information.
invented a lot of these shots that people.
Yeah,
are
he
shooting.
figured them out before everybody does. Everybody knows the shots from YouTube now. In the 60s, there's shots Ronnie Allen figured out that today every plumber knows.
Nick
But
said
back
that,
then, nobody knew that stuff.
When I said, as boisterous and crazy as Fats is, after you dusted him off, how'd he act? I bet that was kind of.
Yeah, how did he act?
Tell him.
How did he act when you beat him 300
Well,
games?
he didn't want, a couple outings at that ball, he gave up on that ball, but then when it started playing even, I had a hard time taking him off. I'd get a big jump on him every time starting out, but I really didn't get to unwind him like I would have liked to, but he was pretty cagey too. A lot of times, I'm not.
But there's no way in
He was good
1970.
at movement.
Right.
He
You
was.
couldn't have been as good in 1970 at one pocket as you were like in 01. I watched you play one pocket in 01. I mean, you play it like perfect.
But the game has developed. too.
That's true,
I mean,
too,
and
yeah, yeah.
Here's the other thing though, what he said, Mark, he really wasn't a bad guy after, he said he'd make you bet, but when I took him off, he went off pretty good because he's so unaccustomed to ever losing. And, cause I was thinking it'd be ugly at the end, I mean, it's gonna be like Richie or something going on here. And he goes like this, No, he took it pretty good. He really didn't bat an eye much. He was just shocked that he ever lost, because he usually, like he said, he matched up pretty good. He hardly ever got himself in a spot where he just didn't have a chance, you know.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, but he played better than
Must
people
have
think.
booked some winners. Oh,
And
yeah.
I didn't know it. The only time I ever saw him, he was like an old man that was a figurehead. He came in with 20-year-old girls, and they were cute as hell. He'd look at us, we're down there practicing. You guys keep practicing. I'm driving to Duesenberg a block long. You bums are walking. You know, it'd be about right. You know, I mean, that was just his whole thing.
Yeah, but
You like not get beat up talking like that.
No, he'd have you cracking up.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
the funniest thing.
I don't know if you know, but he really got famous behind that book Walter Tevis did, and then they did that movie on the Hustler. And Fats, they just called him plain old Fats, or New York Fats. That's where he's from originally. And he got interviews, and man, he talked so good. Howard Cosell kind of liked him, and he put him and that Muhammad Ali together, and they were having, do any of you guys remember them throwing that rib throwing contest, ribbing each other, and the final straw for Muhammad was, he says, listen, sonny boy, that's what Fat said. He said, I was knocking suckers in when your grandpappy was still drinking corn whiskey in Kentucky. And Muhammad Ali grabbed his arm and raised Fat's hand up and says, you are the greatest fan.
I like it when he's on TV the other day and he goes, I played the happy Chinaman. He hasn't been happy since or something. Just the way he said it was so funny.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool to hear that he actually could play, because I just thought, how do you become the most famous player ever? Yet I've never heard a story like Dylan Myrtle was like, oh, we all spotted him Wade, he couldn't beat nobody. And I go, well, how did he ever book a win?
There's some jealousy though.
I was
because
gonna say.
he had the personality pull off of TV shows.
Right,
He's
right.
That was the personality. He was able to, when everybody was knocking him in the pool industry, but about that, he couldn't play.
Yeah.
He just such a great interview and such a great talker. He should have been on the main stage in Las Vegas telling jokes. And
Yeah.
he's a master of exaggeration.
Oh, yeah.
He said he played cannon. The guy said, you ever play cannonball? He says, cannonball? Says, when I got done with him years ago, they called him the BB.
Yeah, or he looks around and he goes, I banked 526 balls. He wants to play a game for $2. And I'm over here with these 2 tomatoes driving to Duesenberg. And I'm going, how does this guy like not get killed? And Mosconi's just steaming walking around the table, you know? Oh, God.
Well, they got it, I think,
Well,
too.
I'd say today, maybe not today, but for years, if you said pool, Minnesota
Oh.
Fats represented pool.
Oh, still does.
That's the only
Yeah.
pool player they knew.
That's right.
And for years, the only other one they really knew was maybe Jeanette Lee. They said, what, who's that girl with the black hair?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to get Nick to just talk